So we're trying to generate a motivation of bodhicitta, aspiring for full awakening for the benefit of all beings, and then combining that with the wisdom realizing emptiness. So the bodhicitta that we usually talk about is that aspiration for full awakening is the conventional bodhicitta. And the wisdom realizing emptiness directly is often called the ultimate bodhicitta. So in that way we're trying to actualize and combine the two bodhicittas, conventional and ultimate, so that when we do actions of giving and ethical conduct and fortitude and so on, that we remember that all these things are empty of inherent existence, and that the agent, the action, the object involved in all of these bodhisattva deeds, that all of these are dependent on each other and therefore empty. And so in this way combine method and wisdom so we can attain the two Buddha bodies, the Dharmakaya and the Rupakaya, or the form body. So to actually do that is quite an amazing practice. As baby beginners, we're trying to learn what all of this means and then practice it as best as we can. And so with that kind of intention, then let's listen to the teachings. So even if we don't quite understand what emptiness means, it's good to reflect on it to whatever ability we have when we're doing different actions. Yeah, and you can think about it at the beginning of an action, often at the end of an action. Okay, so we're about to listen to teachings, which is a virtuous activity, and yet listening to teachings isn't one solid thing, is it? Yeah, when you ask, what is listening to teachings? Yeah, I mean, if we all talk about it, we know what it means, but when you stop and think, well, what is listening to teachings? What is it? Yeah. Is it your ear consciousness? Is it one person's ear consciousness? Many people's ear consciousness? Is it your mental consciousness? Yeah. What are these teachings? And you need somebody to listen, and you need somebody to speak, and you need the action of listening, and you need the scriptures, and you need the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and you need all sorts of other conditions to come together. Yeah. So we talk about listening to teachings as if it's like just one thing, but when you really think about it, there's a whole lot of things going on, and we can't really identify precisely what listening to teachings is. Okay, so it's an interesting thing to think about, isn't it? Yeah. And who's listening to teachings? Yeah. And if the words go in your ear sense faculty, Is that listening to teachings? What about if you can't remember the teachings afterwards, even though you heard them? Did you listen to them? No. Okay, so just, something to bring an awareness of emptiness in as we listen to teachings. With a bodhicitta motivation, whatever that bodhicitta motivation is, and whoever it is that's having it. Okay, so we're verse 195 today. So this is about the necessity of teaching emptiness, or emptiness, suchness, by various approaches. So the verse says, teaching existence, non-existence, both existence and non-existence, and neither, surely are medicines for all that are influenced by the sickness. Yes, that's why I'm going to explain it. Okay, so what it's talking about is, they love this thing, existence, non-existence, both, neither. Yeah, I mean, this comes a lot, this kind of tetralemma. Okay, so for somebody who has the view of non-existence, who, when they hear that things are empty, thinks nothing exists whatsoever, then for that person to counteract that view, the Buddha teaches existence. Okay? Now, somebody else is not going to fall to that extreme of thinking nothing exists. And they're going to have the extreme of, holding on to everything as truly existent, And so to eliminate that innate grasping at true existence, then the Buddha teaches non-existence. Okay. So the first, teaching existence, for somebody who thinks that nothing exists, then the Buddha is teaching conventional existence. For somebody who thinks things are truly existent, then he teaches they are not truly existent. That's what non-existent means here. Okay. Then he taught both existence and non-existence in relationship to conventional awarenesses and analytic awarenesses. Okay? That is, things are not totally non-existent. They are validly established by conventional reliable cognizers. However, they are not found when analyzed with a probing awareness, with a reasoning analyzing the ultimate. Okay? So here's this thing, that when we're analyzing and we're meditating on emptiness, then you negate true existence, meaning that you establish emptiness. And you also have to not just realize emptiness, but when you come out of your meditation on emptiness, you have to be able to establish conventional existence and conventionalities. So this is where the two extremes before came from. Some people, when they meditate on emptiness, then they go to the extreme of nothing exists. They negate too much. Other people, when they meditate on emptiness, they don't negate enough, so they're going to the extreme of true existence. So this one, what it's saying, when it's teaching both existence and non-existence, is from the viewpoint of a conventional reliable cognizer. Okay, so that's just an ordinary mind of sentient beings that's not focused on the ultimate nature and that is not impaired by some kind of temporal defect. Okay, but so that kind of conventional reliable cognizer establishes the existence of different things. Okay, so that's in both existence and non-existence. That's the existence part. On the other hand, when you analyze those same objects using a probing awareness or a wisdom, a reasoning awareness that's analyzing the ultimate, then all that you find is emptiness. Okay, so that's the non-existence part, when teaching both existence and non-existence. So in relationship to conventional valid cognizers, things exist. In relationship to probing awarenesses that are in analytical wisdom, then those conventionalities do not appear, and all that is found is emptiness. Okay, so this is actually quite an important point to understand, because like one problem is people realize emptiness, but when they come out, they can't establish conventional reality properly. So that means that their realization of emptiness wasn't completely spot on. They were negating too much because they can't establish conventional existence. And if you can't establish conventional existence, then you don't have the objects that are the basis of emptiness. Okay? Because in order to have the emptiness of something, you have to have that object which conventionally exists. Okay? So we're not just talking about the emptiness of, turtles' mustaches. We're talking about things that exist in a conventional level, meaning that they exist dependent on other factors, and they appear when you don't analyze to try and find out what exactly they are. But when you try and analyze with the probing awareness to find out exactly what something is, or to find exactly what is the basis, what is the referent of a certain word, a certain term, when you analyze to try and find out what that is, you can't find that object. Okay? So from the mind, the probing awareness that is analyzing, to find things, it doesn't find the object. The only thing that it finds is the lack of inherent existence of the object. Okay? We're not looking for inherently existent objects. We're looking to see how conventional things exist. But when we try and find what those conventional things are with a probing awareness, you can't find them. So that's what the non-existence part is, that they're empty. Okay. Now, these are two different cognizers, the conventional reliable cognizer and the probing awareness, or the reasoning, analyzing the ultimate. These two cognizers have different purviews. Okay? So the conventional valid cognizer, all it can establish is the conventional existence of different things. It cannot perceive ultimate truths. It can only perceive things that exist conventionally. Okay? Whereas the probing awareness, that is looking for exactly what those conventional objects are, the only thing that falls in its purview is emptiness. Those kind of awarenesses that are investigating what exactly something is with reasoning, analyzing the ultimate, they can never, except if you're a Buddha, those awarenesses do not perceive things that they cannot perceive conventional truths. Okay? They only perceive emptiness. Okay, now here's an interesting little thing. Okay, so the probing awareness, I'm using that, the term, the Tibetan term is rikshe. Yeah, rikshe is a difficult term. Sometimes they say analytical mind, or Jimpa says probing awareness, which I think is good, because it can be either conceptual or non-conceptual. But that mind finds only emptiness. Yeah. So emptiness exists in relationship to that mind. Yeah, because everything that exists has to be perceived by a valid cognizer. Okay. So emptiness is perceived by that probing awareness, by that reasoning, analyzing the ultimate. But the existence of emptiness is a conventional truth, and that is established by a conventional reliable cognizer after somebody comes out of their meditative equipoise on emptiness. So emptiness and the existence of emptiness are not the same thing. Okay, emptiness is an ultimate truth. The existence of emptiness is a conventional truth. Okay. Also, even though emptiness is an ultimate truth, it exists conventionally. It's not a conventional truth, but it exists conventionally. Okay? Because a conventional truth is something that appears true to a mind influenced by ignorance. Yeah? A conventional truth is something that does not exist as it appears, because it appears truly existent and it doesn't exist that way. But emptiness is something that's true because it does exist the way it appears. But emptiness exists conventionally because the only other option is if something doesn't exist conventionally, then it has to exist ultimately. And nothing exists ultimately. Because existing ultimately means that it can be found, when you analyze for what that object is, you can actually find it. Okay. Are you getting what I'm saying? It's an interesting little thing about how these words are used, okay? So conventional truth and conventional existence are not the same thing. And ultimate truth and ultimate existence are not the same thing. Yeah? Nothing ultimately exists, because if something ultimately exists, it means that when you search for it with that reasoning, analyzing the ultimate, you're going to find what it is. Now you're going to say, but you said when we search with that reasoning, analyzing the ultimate, we find emptiness. But what we're searching for when we find emptiness is the telephone, the person, or something else. If you put emptiness and you try and search exactly what the referent of the term emptiness is, you find the emptiness of emptiness. Okay, so even emptiness itself cannot bear analysis. Nothing can bear analysis. But bearing analysis and being perceived by probing awareness are different. Okay? Because anything whatsoever that exists is empty. Because if it's not empty, the only other option is it exists truly. So what are you going to say? That emptiness is truly existent?
Some people do.
Some people do. Yeah. Lama Tsongkhapa tears them to bits, tears that position to bits. Yeah, because that sets emptiness off as some kind of absolute that is not the nature of conventional truth. Yeah. If emptiness is truly existent, then it couldn't be the ultimate nature of all the things that do exist, because it would be existing off on its own as some absolute, unrelated to everything else. But emptiness exists in dependence on other things. Yeah, you can't have the emptiness of the paperclip unless you have the paperclip. Okay? So we always like to, that's why, you know, sometimes they translate it as absolute truth. That's not a good translation, because we think of absolute as something far away, unrelated, you know, that's just,
Permanent.
Yeah, permanent. Well, emptiness is permanent.
That's true.
Yeah, but permanent, but unrelated, yeah, to anything else. Yeah, existing on its own. Whereas emptiness is right here, right now, with everything that's existing. It's not something far away. Okay? Okay, so this is really helpful to think about and to remember. Okay?
Can I ask a question about this probing awareness?
Yes.
So that has to be a wisdom already, right? Is that true then? If it only finds emptiness, then anything that you do as a baby beginner, even up to the moment of getting it, is not really a probing awareness until you're realizing it with a wisdom.
Yeah, well, you're developing your probing awareness.
But it doesn't become a probing awareness until it's really a
well, no, there's conceptual probing awareness. It's the mind that conceptually is meditating on emptiness. So, you know, even when we're baby beginners, we're trying to develop our probing awareness. It isn't like there's no probing awareness in our mind and all of a sudden it comes in without any causes, you know.
Right.
Yeah, that seed is already there.
Right.
Otherwise we couldn't develop it.
Right. So, yes. The confusion then is like, a conventional valid cognizer can't even try to look. Is that true?
No, a conventional valid cognizer certifies the existence of things that exist conventionally. And if it's going to analyze, it's going to say, you know, how do we build Chenrezig Hall? You know, and how do you fix the computer? And that's the kind of analysis that's done by a conventional reliable cognizer, or by a conventional, you know, mind that is analyzing conventional analysis. Yeah, how do we balance the budget? How do we deal with the crisis in Ukraine? How do we, you know, that's all with conventional analysis. Ultimate analysis is looking for what exactly an object is.
So before we actually have generated, I was trying to see if I'm getting what you're saying, before we generated the valid ultimate probing awareness,
You have to develop.
Then are we always having, are those all correct assumers, and are those all doubts and everything else?
Yeah, you know, we're going through different things.
They're not valid cognizers either. They're not valid cognizers at all, kind of.
What?
Are they not valid cognizers at all?
No, I mean, like having a correct assumption That's a valid cognizer. It's not an inference. Okay. Yeah, so it's not kind of, establishing a hidden phenomena for good, but it's certainly something.
We could call it an ultimate.
No, I don't know that you would call it an ultimate valid cognizer,
It's not incontrovertible.
Yeah, it's not in.
Knocked off its position.
Right, it's not incontrovertible. Okay, but what you're doing is you're developing your abilities. Okay, so I don't know if you would call it I would call the correct assumption as something that, it's not incontrovertible, but it's, it's knowing something fairly accurately. Yeah. And it doesn't really perceive emptiness, but it's kind of getting there. So I don't know that I would call it, I would call it maybe a similitude of a probing awareness. Yeah? Something like that. You're just trying to develop things. You're asking me for a label here. Uh-huh.
Clarification. Back when you were saying that emptiness exists conventionally.
Yes.
So, okay, so the person's been in meditative equipoise on emptiness. They come out, they have to reestablish conventionalities and everything. And then they, with the conventional awareness, they realize that emptiness exists conventionally.
Right.
But is that awareness afflicted by ignorance? It's a conventional awareness, so
Yeah,
by definition,
it still has, when some,
ignorance is there.
yeah, when all cognizers of sentient beings accept meditative equipoise on emptiness that directly realizes emptiness, all other cognizers are mistaken and affected by ignorance or the latencies of ignorance. Okay? But just because something is affected by the latencies of ignorance, it doesn't mean it's a wrong consciousness.
Right, because you haven't necessarily bought into it.
Right.
It
Right.
appears that way.
Yeah, and you can,
have sunglasses on.
yeah, you can still function in the world. We're seeing everything. Everything is appearing to us as truly existent, but we still have conventional valid cognizers that can function in the world. They're mistaken because how things appear is not how they exist. Yeah. So I have to come back. The correct assumption probably isn't a valid cognizer because it's not incontrovertible, but it's going in that direction. Yeah.
Another question?
Yeah.
So, with somebody who goes to the nihilistic view, what would be the obstacle in the mind that would make it not possible to establish conventional existence when you come out? What happens?
Okay. So it's very interesting that what happens, the person who can't establish conventional existence, is they have confused in their mind. They have the same problem as the people who grasp true existence do, in that they can't differentiate between true existence and existence, and they can't differentiate between emptiness and total non-existence. Mm-hmm. So they conflate these two members of each pair. Okay? So they think if something exists, it's got to exist inherently. And if something doesn't exist, if something is empty, then it's totally non-existent. Because they say, if it exists inherently. If you negate inherent existence, then it doesn't exist at all. So they think that emptiness is total non-existence. Okay?
Seeing it,
Hmm?
and then seeing it, actually seeing it would
Seeing what?
reinforce emptiness.
Yeah.
Would actually reinforce that wrong
Well, they're negating too much. Yeah. So they're negating too much. They're not just negating inherent existence, they're negating all existence, because they think that existence, conventional existence and inherent existence are the same thing.
So they'll never actually perceive emptiness, right?
Their realization of emptiness is not complete. Yeah. This is, and we chant the 3 principles of the path every week. This is what is going on in those verses about emptiness. Okay, this is what Jay Rinpoche is explaining here.
But do you kind of have to go to that point and then come back?
I don't know if everybody goes to that point. Yeah. Whenever they tell the story of, the person grabbing the donka, but then I asked somebody about that, and they told me that actually that person was still involved in a conceptual probing awareness. Because if you actually have direct perception of emptiness, it's real emptiness. Until that, it's still, if you don't, it seems, as I understand it, that until you get that, when you're at one extreme or another, you're not actually perceiving emptiness. Yeah.
So then when these people who believe to negate too much and look at the world, if they think that things are non-existent, what actually do they think is going on?
Yeah, well, this is why they say that this extreme of nihilism is so dangerous. Because if you look at the world and say, oh, nothing exists, it's not that things are like illusions, they are illusions. So there's no people out there. The people are like, like Mickey Mouse characters that my mind is just dreaming up, and there's no real people there. Then it's very easy, for somebody to start negating karma and its effects. So that's why this is so dangerous, the view of nihilism, because then it's very easy to think, well, nothing exists, none of these things are really existing, so it doesn't really matter what I do, karma doesn't really exist, these people don't exist, there aren't, there's not real people, so they don't experience real pain. Yeah, they're just,
But I'm inherently existent.
Yeah, but I'm inherently existent, right? Yeah, somehow that always gets in there.
You wouldn't have to go to the dentist.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So there's different kinds of nihilism. Some people just negate cause and effect. They say things exist, but cause and effect doesn't work. And some people say, oh, nothing exists. Things are illusion instead of they're like illusions. Yeah. So. Okay. And then the neither, okay, is to eliminate the 2 extreme views of existence and non-existence. Okay, so to eliminate those 2 extreme views of existence, meaning permanence and true existence, and the other extreme of non-existence, meaning nihilism, nothing whatsoever. Yeah, you're negating too much. Then the Buddha taught that both things, and whenever we say things, we mean functional things, impermanent phenomena. So things and non-things. Non-things refers to permanent phenomena. Okay, so the Buddha taught that both functioning things and non-things, in other words, both impermanent phenomena and permanent phenomena, are not truly existent. Okay, so the neither is that neither functioning things nor permanent phenomena are truly existent. Okay, so that's what the neither is in that case. And so that's to really show that, that that everything is empty, and to negate the two extremes. Okay? So these are all medicines to cure the illness of wrong thinking. Yeah. Therefore, everything the Buddha says is a means to attain nirvana when we consider what is needed by different individuals at different times. So here again, this theme that's coming up, why did different people have different teachings, or why does one person have different teachings at different times? It's because there's different ways of wrong thinking that are prominent in somebody's mind at one time or another. Okay, but all of these are medicine according to whatever your diseased conception happens to be at that point. Yeah? Sometimes, now most of us are falling towards the extreme of permanence or the extreme of eternalism. Yeah? But then it's very easy when you start to analyze and you can't find anything. Well, nothing there. Yeah, so everything's gone. Okay, so, so remember at the beginning when Jeffrey was talking about the emptiness dawning as the meaning of dependent arising, and dependent arising dawning as the meaning of emptiness, and that this happens after you have conceptually realized emptiness when you come out of your meditation. Yeah, so this is exactly that point. Yeah. Yeah.
It could be a funny question, but we don't see everything that exists, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
When we realize emptiness, we see differently, right? We don't see solid. Things are moving. Things that you see the dance and all of that. Do we?
I think when you perceive emptiness, because before that you've realized impermanence, subtle impermanence. So certainly with subtle impermanence, it's going to affect the way you see things. I'm not sure how, I don't know that so much changes in terms of what your eye sees, but how your mental consciousness views what your eye sees. That's what, and what your ear hears, and so on. That's what really changes. Okay? Because, like I was saying before, everything still appears truly existent to every consciousness of a sentient being except meditative equipoise directly perceiving emptiness. So true existence is still going to appear to your eye consciousness, to your sense consciousness, to your auditory consciousness, olfactory, gustatory, tactile. Okay? But then how your mental consciousness relates to what's appearing to your senses is going to be totally different. Yeah, completely different. Yeah. So that's why they keep emphasizing that at that point you realize that things do not exist as they appear. They appear truly, they don't exist the way they appear. Yeah? And so Jay Rinpoche, he goes into, in the middle Lam Rim, he goes into this big thing explaining that illusion-like experiences does not mean that all of a sudden with your eye everything looks like a rainbow and everything's kind of fuzzy and vague, and that's not what illusion-like wisdom, or illusion-like meditation is all about. It's more affecting your mental consciousness, how you're relating to the things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back to what you were just explaining, how things appear, they would also have to appear to your mental consciousness at first that way, but then you work it out.
Yeah, they still would appear to your mental consciousness as truly existent, but you're quite aware that appearance is false. It's like when we look at a TV, yeah, we get so emotional when we look at a TV because at that moment we're relating to all the people on the TV like they're real people and what's happening is really there. Okay? But when you step back and you say, oh, this is just an appearance on a screen, then, it changes how you see it, doesn't it? Oh, this is just an appearance on a screen. There's nobody really there that all of this is happening to, whether it's a tragedy or a comedy. Yeah? Uh-huh.
One thing I'm confused about is, when you say that the emptiness of a non-existent is not a real emptiness, right? Because there's no dimensional object there. So how does that apply when you're looking at the self-sufficient, substantially existent person? So that thing that, since it doesn't have a conventional existence, it doesn't have a real emptiness?
No, that there's no such thing as a self-sufficient, substantially existent person. There's no such thing. It's a turtle's mustache.
Right.
Okay?
Does it have a emptiness?
Well, yeah, they get in the debate courtyard, then they say, oh, well, is it truly existent? Well, you have to say, no, it's not truly existent. Well, therefore, then it's empty. But it's not a real emptiness. But, a self-sufficient, substantially existent person is the same thing as a turtle's mustache and a rabbit's horn and all those things. Okay?
So then when we realize the non-existence of the self-sufficient,
yeah.
Then we're realizing the emptiness of
No, you're reading the selflessness.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. When you realize that there's no self-sufficient, substantially existent person, then you're realizing, according to Prasangika, the coarse selflessness of persons. Okay? The lower schools all say that the lack of a self-sufficient, substantially existent person is the subtle selflessness, but the Prasangikas say no, it's coarse. They say it's subtle selflessness of person, to be specific. Prasangikas say it's coarse, coarse selflessness. That you still haven't realized the emptiness of true existence when you've realized that. Okay? But it's a good step. Yeah. It's a very good step. Okay, should I go on to the next verse? Yeah? No? Okay.
This isn't fair. Okay, but how about that translation that he uses, self-sufficient substance?
Yeah, it's just a different translation. A self-sufficient substance, But this word substance is quite, it's very hard to pin down exactly what it means. Yeah. Self-sufficient substance. Okay, you have to understand the meaning of it. Yeah. Well, the meaning of it is some kind of self that is findable within the aggregates, if I remember correct. It's more the idea of a controlling self, a self that governs. Yeah. Yeah, and then they have the coarse and subtle forms of self-sufficient, substantially existent self. Yeah. Yeah.
So what you said before, the process for negating the self-sufficient, substantial existence is the same, but what about the process for identifying the object to be negated?
there to identify. That I think is when they say, imagine a time when you've been insulted. That I think is what you're identifying more there.
So like when you're advised to first start trying to identify the grosser object, really any identification of it is going to be the grosser object because that's the level we're at.
Because we can't.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't even see the subtle object of negation. Yeah.
Of course.
Huh? Of course. Yeah. We can't even see the coarse one. Yeah. Okay, verse 196. We're speeding along here. So this is about advice to strive to understand suchness. Okay, so Aryadeva says, correct perception leads to the supreme state. Some perception to good transmigrations. The wise, thus, always expand their intelligence to think about the inner nature.
That's encouraging.
Yes, that is encouraging, isn't it? Okay. So what is saying is the previous verse, that showing how things are free from the extremes of existence, non-existence, both and neither, that's a teaching on the ultimate. Okay, and perceiving the ultimate completely with an Arya's wisdom leads to liberation, because that's the direct perception of emptiness. Okay, so that's the first line. Correct perception leads to the supreme state. Yeah. Some perception to good transmigrations. So if you perceive, emptiness to some extent, okay, with a mundane wisdom arising from meditation. For example, on the path of accumulation, path of preparation. Now, the wisdom arising from meditation, there's different ways of defining it. Yeah, Sarah J. says it starts with the path of preparation when you have the union of calm abiding and calm abiding and special insight. Okay, and then one of the schools in Drepung says no, it's just when you have deep concentration. They don't have a time where it actually starts. Okay. Let me just pause for a minute, make sure I got that right. Yeah, I think that's right. Okay, so perceiving emptiness to some extent. Okay, when you have on the path of preparation, that's the second path, then you have the union of serenity and insight on emptiness, and you're meditating on a correct conceptual understanding of emptiness. Okay, and then before that, the first path of accumulation, then you're really, if you don't have an inference yet of emptiness, you're getting closer to it. Okay, and some schools say that to get to the path of accumulation, you need serenity. Sarah J. says that. And then other schools say no. Other ones say you don't need serenity to enter the path of accumulation. But regardless, on path of accumulation, you have, if you don't have full serenity and if you don't have the correct view yet, you're certainly developing all of those things, but you may have them already. So on those two levels, even though their wisdom is so much more advanced than ours, it's still going to bring a good rebirth in samsara because they don't have the unpolluted wisdom yet. Okay, so that's perceiving it to some extent with mundane wisdom arising from meditation. For example, path of accumulation, path of preparation, or, We can still squeeze in there. Understanding emptiness from hearing and thinking. Okay, so we have hearing, thinking, and meditating. So even just by hearing and thinking about emptiness is implanting the cause for good rebirth in our mind. Okay, so thus the wise constantly expand their intelligence to contemplate emptiness. Okay, so seeing that even just understanding something about emptiness through hearing, through thinking, that's going to lead to good rebirth, and that eventually that will lead you to have the unpolluted wisdom, or that will lead you eventually to have the wisdom arising from meditation, which is the union of serenity and insight, and then that will lead you to having the unpolluted wisdom that knows emptiness directly, an Arya's wisdom. And so seeing that there's this path of, sequential development, and that the first part of it is going to lead us to good rebirth, and then the second will lead us out of samsara totally to liberation and to full awakening, then the intelligent, in other words, people who know what's good for them, always try to study and learn something about emptiness, even if it's a difficult topic. Yeah? So it doesn't matter if it's difficult, because even trying to learn about it helps your mind and puts good seeds. And the only way you're going to get better at understanding emptiness is starting at the beginning with not understanding it. We want to always skip the beginning part where it's hard to understand and just go to the part where we understand something, But at the beginning, we don't understand anything. But if you think about it, you may say, oh, I still don't understand anything. But you understand some words now, don't you?
It's too hard, though.
Yeah. And you understand some concepts now, right? Yeah. And you got that through patiently sitting through all these boring talks.
I will not say that.
Yeah, so you know more now than you did before. And, and you did it with a good motivation, so you planted a lot of good seeds on your mind. Yeah. So we should rejoice at that, and knowing what's good for us, then to continue in that same vein. Yeah. It's like they just had the Olympics, okay? Now, of course, we don't watch any of those things, but, these guys they're going with the snowboards, and they jump off this thing, and then they do somersaults and backflips and, come down here. Or they're going down the half pipe, and they're, twirling this way and that way and landing here and there. Do you think the first time they got on a snowboard, they were able to do that? No. Yeah. First time they got on a snowboard, they probably fell off.
A lot.
A lot. And in fact, some of them still fall off. Yeah, even these great Olympic people, in the middle of the Olympics, they still fall off their skis and their snowboards, and they trip over their skates and everything. Yeah? And these are the professionals, okay? Well, you can't be professional and be in the Olympics, so they're the unprofessional amateurs, the unprofessional professionals. But, but so how did they get to where they're able to do all that? It was only by starting at the beginning.
They were very young.
Yeah. Yeah. Doesn't matter how old they were, They started at some point.
And then thousands of hours of practice.
Yeah.
Sacrifice.
Yeah. A lot of practice. A lot of sacrifice. Yeah. For something that forget that they're not even going to have this when they die. But, you know, by the time they're 45, you know, they're not going to be able to do it. Yeah.
What was very striking for me, I haven't read it like that before, that the Buddha's appearance was because of teaching emptiness, actually, and the fulfillment of Buddha's teaching is the realization of emptiness.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't follow that path, we don't,
yeah.
Buddha's purpose.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, why did Buddha come to the world? You think it was to, you know, eat applesauce? Yeah. Or chocolate chip cookies? Or lasagna? No, I mean, the Buddha came to the world to teach emptiness. Okay? And all the teachings are eventually heading us in that direction to realize emptiness. So, again, if we're a little bit intelligent, we should, you know, it's hard, but we should try and think about it and go in that direction. Yeah?
I have a question just about, I've been confused lately. Why does ignorance produce afflictions? Or why,
Yeah, why does ignorance produce afflictions? This question takes a lot of meditation, to really see it in your own experience. Because ignorance, especially the ignorance, that self-grasping of the person, our own particular person, this mental factor of jigta, or view of the perishing aggregates, okay, by holding on to, by thinking that the conventional I is actually truly existent, then we reference, once we think that there's this real, true I, person there, then everything gets referenced in terms of that person. Yeah, because there's this thing that's me that we, that's present all day. Yeah, and everything is referenced in terms of it. So then when there's things that appear attractive to that person, attachment arises. I want them. They give me pleasant feelings. They make me feel good. Yeah. They keep me healthy. They keep me happy. Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah. And then when something interferes with us getting what we want, then very unhappy, and we get angry and upset. Yeah. I want this and I can't get this. And this problem I don't want is coming anyway. Yeah, because everything is referenced to that person, which is conceived of as something very, very real. Yeah, and since it's the self-grasping of our own I, it's the center of the universe, isn't it? Yeah, and so you look, how everything is referenced in terms of how it affects me, and whether I like it or I don't like it.
I love that explanation.
Yeah, yeah. When we wake up in the morning and we say, oh, I have a headache. Yeah. Do we think about all the people in the world who wake up in the morning with headaches? Do we care beans about other people who have headaches? No, we never even think of them. Never, unless they're having a headache is either doing, affecting us. If you're having a headache, impinges on my happiness because now you can't do your work and I have to. Then I notice you have a headache. But otherwise, yeah?
Okay. I have a difficulty with that. Like, I wake up in the morning, do I think of the other ones that have a headache? But I think my mind goes, okay, I'm trying to understand selflessness, but I have to think of all those other selflessness.
Yeah. Yeah, you're without a truly existent self.
And I have to think of the other
one. And yeah.
Why it's helping?
Because right now you're so stuck in thinking me, I, my, and mine that it makes you totally miserable. We're so miserable because we reference everything to ourselves. Yeah? So-and-so walked in the meditation hall late. Why are they walking in the meditation hall late? This is disturbing me. Why is it disturbing me? Well, I don't know. Because the rule is that you're supposed to be there on time.
That's it.
The rule is you're supposed to be on time. And my mind says everybody has to follow the rules, and there's absolutely no exception. And you're coming in the meditation hall 5 minutes late, and that is disturbing my understanding of how the universe should function. Not to mention the fact that you close the door loudly.
And your jacket makes a lot of noise when you unzip.
Yeah, right. And you click your mala and you turn the pages of your sadhana. And, I just can't bear it. Your mind's totally miserable, isn't it?
So when I think
totally
the problem
miserable.
of others, it helps me not to think of my problems.
Yeah, it sure does. Yeah? Think of all the people who woke up in the morning and said, my country is in chaos today. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about that today because I was thinking how, one of the things that Stalin did is he told different groups of people he would just pick them up and transport them clear across the country. Yeah? And I was thinking, what would it be like? And I mean, not only Stalin did this, but this is what happened with the Nazis too. They just, and I was thinking, how would that be? You're living here, and somebody drove up at the Abbey, knocked on the door, and said, okay, pack your things but tomorrow you are moving clear across the country. I was thinking, what would that be like? I mean, it's something that it's hard to even imagine. What would that be like?
He was moving them to kill them or what?
Yeah, Stalin's thing was divide and conquer. So mix up all the different ethnic groups, and then, they quarrel amongst each other, but at least that gives the central government a reason to come in and be very strong and very heavy-handed.
That's what is happening right now?
No, I mean, Stalin died, but I was just thinking about, some of the group, anyway, Yeah. It is happening right now in many places in Africa. Yeah, I mean, it has to do with the Ukraine, but that's not happening now. But there's these people in the Crimea that happened to them generations ago. And actually, the Kalmykian Buddhists, this is what happened. Stalin made them move thousands of miles away from their own land. And in Africa now, I mean, there's fighting in an area, and in Syria, you have to pick up and go to a refugee camp. I was thinking, what would it be like where there's war all around here, and we're afraid for our own lives, and we have to just pack up and leave everything here and set out somewhere, and we're not even sure where we're going or where we'll get to. You know, and this happens to so many people, and it's still happening. I mean, the number of refugees in this world is incredible. There's millions of people who are refugees. Yeah. But when we wake up, do we think about those people, what their experience is? Yeah. You know, we just think about our own petty little concerns. You know, the room's too cold. I don't want to get up out of my warm, cozy bed. Yeah? Or whatever our latest drama is. Yeah? So, you know, when we do think of the problems of others, it puts our own situation in relief. You know, and we realize, wow, my problems are not that bad. My problems are quite manageable.
I don't have any problems.
Yeah, I don't have any problems. Yeah. Yeah.
In our mindfulness practices, for example, there are these stories of the master who was putting his disciples in very difficult situations. Like they have bad disease, lay people would put them immediately into the hospital, and this master is saying no, they can work with their mind to see or to realize something. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, if you go through these hardships, that you take yourself, you view on yourself as a stable, permanent thing, and break through it, and from that perception from yourself, that you can be able to extend that only to your own experiences.
Yeah.
So when I have a very comfortable life, and use that fully with maybe with my 8 worldly concerns in addition, then I will have a chance of any of these insights in outer phenomena if I don't start with myself.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. We have to start with ourselves, don't we? Have to, and we have to use the situations that are presented to us in our life. Yeah?
Back to this question about ignorance leading to afflictions.
Mm-hmm.
How you explained this, I think, last September or October. It's hard for me to understand that since ignorance is just seeing true existence, what is the correct explanation of how, or is there not a correct explanation, or there's a couple explanations of how something that's exaggerating goodness and something that's exaggerating negativity, mm-hmm. how that can come out of one ignorance. Like attachment and anger both rely on ignorance.
Yeah, but it's exactly
exaggerating different things.
Yeah, but it's exactly what I said. You have that strong I, then whatever gives it pleasure, attachment, whatever interferes with its pleasure, anger.
Mm-hmm. So that determination happens at the level of ignorance.
What do you mean?
Well, I've been listening to these teachings from last summer, and
mm-hmm.
it seems like that was kind of a debatable point about how that actually worked, and where it kind of didn't work for me is like their mode of apprehending something is like opposite, like ignorant or anger and attachment are exaggerating opposite things.
Yeah,
so
but they both come out of.
Seems like the finding the thing desirable or finding it undesirable happens way earlier before you get to the anger and the attachment.
Yeah, you have the pleasant feeling or the unpleasant feeling.
Right. Yeah, it just seems like it's actually quite a complicated thing.
Yeah,
Even that,
it is, and we want to like make okay, it's like this until there, and then exactly it's there. And, you know, look at your own experience.
It's very layered.
It's like boom, 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 boom. It happens very quickly. Very quickly.
And even at contact, it's already leaning in that direction. Right?
Yeah.
So as soon as the consciousness, I mean, even as the consciousness is arising, we're already heading there.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's some contact, and then immediately there's feeling.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, it happens very quickly. Yeah, we just, you know, we want everything slow down. But, you know, when you have very good concentration, then maybe you can find each moment here as it's changing. Yeah. But again, if you look, try and find where's the exact moment, the truly existent moment, where at this point it was feeling and at this point it became attachment. Are you going to find that one dividing line?
In the gap.
Right there, you know? Yeah, is between the feeling and the attachment, is there a gap? Do you have positive feeling, then you have nothing, and then attachment arises? Or do they touch each other? And there's all of a sudden feeling, you know, changes nature and becomes attached. You know, we're looking. Yeah. We want everything in nice delineated little boxes, which is the whole thing about things are merely labeled. Okay?